Welcome, everyone. That's a massive introduction. I have no slides yet, so I'll just keep talking until they figure that out. So yeah, best and amazing in the world, so no pressure to make sure, I teach you all how to test. We're going to talk about testing web applications with Playwright. First of all, how many of you here have heard of Playwright? Nice. Is that because you came to the booth and I told you all about it? No? Good. Okay, how many are actually using Playwright in production? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, it's still low. I got some work to do, but it's pretty good. Okay, excellent. My timer says 08:27, so that's going to be really helpful. I can go 8 minutes over time. That means. Okay, so another question. How many of you are testing your applications? Not enough of you. But you're honest, and that's great. Honesty is the best policy. Okay, for those of you that did not put your hand up, why are you not testing your applications? Why are you not testing? Anyone? Shout out. You just can't be bothered. Is that it? Okay, I'm going to convince you to test. The slides are back up. So we've got... My name is Debbie O'Brien. As I was introduced, I don't think there's much more to say about me, except that I try to do about 3 hours of sport a day. So make sure you follow me on Twitter to find pictures of me running everywhere and cycling, playing paddle, and doing lots of sport. The reason I tell you this is because although I've won a lot of awards and got to where I am today, I do not spend 12 hours a day in front of a computer, and I do not think you should either. So make sure you take time off. Life is important. Tech is important, but also life. Enjoy it, do sport, and have fun. Okay, so let's talk about Playwright testing. Playwright testing, for those of you that do not know, is reliable end-to-end testing for modern web apps. It can run on any browser, any platform with one API, full isolation, so your tests all run in isolation, fast execution, and very, very powerful tooling, which I'm going to show you today. So again, this is the problem that we have, that testing is hard. A lot of people tell me it's hard. Do you agree? Yeah, is it hard? Yeah. Testing takes time to learn, right? Another problem we have. Testing takes time to build, right? You got to wait on CI, etc., while it's building. And time is money, right? And, project manager comes up and says, we need this app shipped today, like yesterday. So you go, all right, I'll just take away the testing, won't do testing, and therefore it's in production, and I'll test later, yeah? Sometimes. So another thing is culture. We don't have a culture of testing. We're not kind of teaching testing in the boot camps at the early stages. So our junior developers are learning to build applications, and they haven't even tested applications. And we need to bring it in at the junior levels. If you're a team lead, you need to be helping the junior developers start to use testing from the very early stages so that testing just becomes normal, as opposed to later when you get to senior level. So how can we get developers to write more tests? Anyone know the answer? Yes. Sorry, go ahead. You need more money. I can't help you there. Yeah, you need more money. Anyone else? Money's not going to happen. How else? Make it fun. Exactly. Thank you. Mr. Dodds there says make it fun. That's what we need to do. We need to make testing fun. And this is what Playwright is going to do, right? It's going to make testing fun, but not just fun. We need to make testing easy. We need to make it so that any developer can come along and write tests easily, quickly, and have fun at the same time. So let me show you. You can tell me later if it's fun or not. So Playwright, we can use a VS Code extension. Anyone using VS Code? Yes, I love it. Beautiful. Lots of people. So right in the VS Code, you can just go to the extensions and install Playwright. So that's super simple. We've got that done. You can also use the terminal for those non-VS Code users or people who love terminal. Totally use the terminal. Once you've installed the extension, you can just open the command panel and install Playwright, just as simple as that. And then you get to choose which browsers you want to install. So no matter what you're using, whether it's Windows or Mac, etc., you can choose to install Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit, all of them, one of them. And also see that bottom box up there, add a GitHub Actions workflow. And I'll show you that a little bit later. But if you add the GitHub Actions workflow, then you will automatically be able to run your tests on CI without doing any work. It's all just set up for you, which is kind of cool. So once you have that done, this is what you'll get: a folder with the GitHub folder with the actions. You'll get a test folder with an example test, which we're going to run through in a minute. You'll get another test examples, which has a to-do app, so you can check that out and have a look at more testing examples. And then the other stuff is normal stuff. And then you've got the Playwright config in case you need to configure anything else in Playwright. So running your tests is very easy. You can run all tests, a set of tests, a single test, tests run in parallel, and they are super fast. So here is running test from the VS Code extension. Little green triangle there, line 3. And just press that button, right? Now I've got my test running. It's going to open that browser, and bang, test is done. It's a very simple test. So as you can see, very quickly, in a matter of seconds, the test is run. OK. You can also do some live debugging. So if you have any bugs in your code, which I know you never do because you all write amazing code, am I right? Yes. So error messaging in VS Code. If you do have a bug, we're going to break this test here. So on line 12, I'm looking for a text here called get started. I'm just going to put the word star in here. Now what happens is I run my test and it fails, and it's going to say error, strict mode violation. OK, so it's like Playwright is saying there are 3 times that the word star is found on this page, and I don't know which one you want me to click. So help me out here. What do you want me to do? So we can put a breakpoint here if we didn't understand that error message, and we can run in debug mode. Once we do that, it's going to pause, and it's going to show me that the star is in the word get started. It's also in the word getting started and in the GitHub star at the top. So we've got 3 areas, and we can visually see them. So we can change this, and we can, put started, maybe that's a better selector. And we can see, no, there's 2 of those, so that's not going to be very helpful. So then we can change again, and we can go back to whatever selector that we want. So you can play around with this and basically live debug using the VS Code extension. So locators, what are locators? You just saw in the code. Locators, they're a way to find elements on the page at any moment with built-in auto-weighting and retry ability. So it just comes out of the box. You don't have to do any work to get this, which is great. So this is what a locator looks like. This is me creating a locator. I'm saying const get started. Get started is my locator. And I'm using page.locator. And the selector I'm using a text selector. Now you might use a CSS selector or a role selector or any other kind of selector, right? So here I'm just using a text selector. And that's the locator then I can use throughout the code, that get started locator. So picking a selector. When you want to pick a selector in VS Code, you can click on the pick selector right here. And this will open up the browser, and I can see, as I scroll across, all the selectors that I can have. So, for example, the area label, the span, up here, the GitHub area label, I can click on that. Now it's inside this box in VS Code, and now I have access to it. If I press enter, it's going to copy it to my clipboard, or I can go back and say, no, let's have a look. This is a lovely one, an aside, followed by the text, writing tests. So writing tests inside the aside. That's a great selector. I can copy that then and put it into my code, and then continue writing my tests. So that's nice and fun. Make sure you're using web first assertions. So we've got all these assertions to be checked, to be disabled, to be empty, to be enabled, to have count, to have CSS, to have ID, to have screenshot, et cetera, et cetera. So check those out and make sure you're using web first assertions. Now let me introduce you to my friend Codegen. Codegen is amazing. Codegen will generate the tests by recording your actions. So I think it's really cool because I just love, not having to do a lot of work and telling my boss that it takes 2 hours to write tests and doing it in 2 seconds. So that's how I get to do so much support, you see. So this is Codegen in action, and we can literally click on the Record New Here button. When we click on this, what it does is it opens up a browser window. Now, if you look over here in VS Code, it's open a test1.spec file, and it's imported Playwright, and it's got the test started. So I go over here, and I'm going to test the conference website. So I come along here, and I'm going to click on the cookies. I'm going to accept those. I'm going to see if the title exists. What else will I do? I'm going to click on the speakers. I'll see what speakers are here, and I'll scroll down. I'll look at these amazing speakers, and I'll check that that title is there. And then I'll keep scrolling along. Oh, look, there's a pop-up here. I'm going to click on that, and there's a location. Let's see where this conference is. That's opening up another browser page, and I'm going to check the event location, see if that text is there. And tickets. I want to buy a ticket for this conference because it's amazing. So I scroll down here. And I've got I'm going to be a late student because, left it to the last minute. And I'm going to select one ticket. I'm going to buy one ticket. And here we go. And I'll add that order now button. That's going to open up another page. Now I'm testing this page, and I can just test maybe like the price, make sure that the price is there and how much it is, etc. And then I can go over to my code, and I can see, look at all the code that I just wrote just by doing nothing. So I can go for a run for the rest of the day and happy out. So as you can see, like here, we've got page and we've got page one. Page one is actually the second tab that opened up, and I'm testing page two. That's the third one that opened up. So if you're testing like chat apps, for example, this is a really, really good solution. And I can go back and still record more, and I can go back to the first page, and then it's going to add to the first page. They can continue the tests on there. So you can like really like interact between different domains, different pages, and test your applications. So that's kind of cool, right? Now, remember, Codegen is great. It's kind of like GitHub Copilot. It's great, but sometimes it's not perfect, and you have to like, make things a little bit better. So you do want to go through your tests a little bit more and change some of those clicks. As I clicked on the text, the user wouldn't click on the heading, right? So I want to go back and change that and actually use the web first assertions. So I'll go over my test once Codegen has created it for me, and I'll say, right, here's a great example of expect the page.locator. The text has the website used cookies, right? And I just, instead of clicking it, I just want that to be visible. I can look along here. This is everything I get, autocomplete, and I'll scroll down and see what's available, and I'll say, right, okay, to be visible, that's kind of simple enough. I'll just use that one for now. And then I can go along, yes, the locator of the, we click that accept button for the cookies, that's good. Then we say H1 as text. Okay, we want this to be visible rather than click. The user's not going to click on the title. So I'll change that, and I'll put then, just again, instead of .click, I'm going to use to be visible. And you can see this is a H1, right? We're searching that the H1 has the text Infobip shift conference. Again, I can look along here. What else can I change in this code? So the header had the text equals speakers. We clicked on that speakers. So that's cool. That's fine. That we want to make sure that meet our speakers exists on the page. Once we clicked, we had the text meet our speakers. So let's make sure that's visible. What else did we do? We had the that little icon down there that had that chat thing that pops up, that little pop-up iframe that popped up. So here we're able to test an iframe. Yes, we went into the iframe using the frame locator. We found the iframe ID, and we made sure that the text of location, and we clicked on that one. That one opened up another page for us, so we can, test this. All right, this one was at event location, so we'll change that to be web first assertion. Expect it to be visible. So again, not too difficult, right? You can see the work that I'm doing is pretty simple. Like Codegen has done the basic work for me, like the hardcore work, and I'm just coming in, going over my tests, and just making it simpler. So once this is done and we're happy with our test, we can then basically run that test and make sure it's working. So at any point as I'm changing things, I can actually just run the tests. So let's have a look at the test as I changed it with all these web first assertions, and bang, look at this. It's waiting for this little pop-up to come up, the iframe. It's going to come up in a second. It takes a couple of seconds. And there, the iframe went up. It clicked it. It opened that event location page. It clicked on the tickets, and bang, there's my test done. So I can go home happy. My test is working, and everything is working as it should. And I've seen it, and I've visually seen it as well. So we can also do component testing. This is experimental, so there's, check it out for component testing for Vue, Svelte, or for React. And you install this package if you're using the component testing. I'll just show you very quickly how the component testing works. So basically, this is just a Vue application. I've got 3 components here, and just the same as I was doing the end-to-end testing, I can click on this button and see the test. I can open each test file. So here I'm just testing the prop in Vue to make sure that the message is there. Run the test, and I've got this is going to pop up my Vite and Playwright, which is the heading. I can remove that prop. Now, if I remove that prop and run that test, I'm going to visually see there's nothing on the page, but the test is also going to fail. I'm going to get that error message in VS Code, and it's going to say, hey, I expected Vite and Playwright, and you gave me nothing. So what's going on here? You need to fix me. So put that prop back in, and now we've got our component test working as it should, and I can visually see that it's there. Again, I have other components in here. So the card component, I'm testing the vSlots, and I want to make sure that the vSlot exists and that the count is in there. I can run that test, and I can visually see that component. So that's looking good. I can go over to the next component, the count. I want to see if the count is working. I'll open up that one. This just increments when it's clicked, and I'll just run that test. I can see the count is there, clicked it too. So my components are good, and I can move on and build more components. So another thing you can do is show reports. You will need to use the terminal for this, which is npx playwright show report. So once you've run the test using the terminal, you can get the report. A report looks something like this, right? So I have run my tests on mobile Safari. I'll come back to that X in red in a second. You can see I've got it on Chromium, on Firefox, and on WebKit. I'm running the example one and the test I created for the Infobip Shift conference, which is failing on WebKit, mobile Safari, sorry. You can also see this little kind of like icon there. Again, I'll show you what that means in a second. This is like the trace, right? So what I need to do, well, I can click in here, I can, go through all of these. I'll show you that in a second. I'm going to go to the traces. So npx playwright test, I want to turn the traces on. Now, what is a trace, you're probably going to ask? I'll show you in a second, but what I'm doing is putting traces on to be able to trace through my test. This normally is done on CI, right? But I wanted to run it locally just to show you in this conference, and you might want to run it locally, but normally it's all in the GitHub Actions, and it's going to run when every test fails on the first retry of the test. So when you set this up, you've got your playwright test, right? This is the trace, okay? This is my whole test, and I can visually go through the trace file of that test to see what happened. So imagine if this one failed. This one didn't, but this one is passed, so we're just like browsing through it. So this one, video starts, yes. So I can scroll over the timeline and see at exactly every point on every state of the page, what happened, what was clicked, and I can go through the timeline, hovering over here, and you'll see in a second when there's 2 pages, now I've got the interaction of the 2 pages, right? So this page was happening, but then if I just move down a little bit, I can see what happened on the next page, but I can still see that the first page, that first domain, I can see what's going on as well while the other domain is open. And I can scroll down. Now I've got the second page and the other page, which is the tickets. And I can see what's going on there, right? So I can scroll along and see the timeline. Now there's more to the trace. I can also see over here the actions. And the actions, I can click on each action of the test. And I can see what was happening during the action, right? What was happening before and after. So here the before and the after, you can see the animation of the cookies coming in there. You can see the action, the click event, where it was clicked, what we did. So you can see also the call up here, the selector, right? This is the ID of the cookie. Strict mode is true because we want it to be strict. We want to make sure there's only one ID there. You can see the console, the network, and the source. And we can go through every single one of these. Every time there's a little error, you can see there's a little kind of icon there of an error, right? That's because there's some things going on in the console that maybe we want to fix or not. That's up to the developers. You can see what was coming back from the network. And again, go through every single one of these to see what's going on in our test. So yes, console errors, call. Make sure this selector exists, right? So we can send and say, hey, there's an error here on this part of the trace at this file, and here's the source code for it, here's the network, and developer, go and fix this test because this test is failing on CI, right? You can also see the metadata, so you can see this is running in Chromium, and that is mobile is false. So that's the trace viewer. Now, you can configure the test for mobile Safari very easily by just opening the config. I'll show you how to do that. Literally, you go into the files, open the config. It's actually already there for you, just like you just have to uncomment it. So I want to also run on mobile Safari. I could run on Pixel or MS Edge or anything else. There's a whole list of devices that you can run on. So I'll run this test on mobile Safari. And you probably already saw in the show reports, I'm going to run this Playwright show report, and I'm going to go back to what I had here, right, which is this report here, which basically has failed. So when I run this test on mobile Safari, it failed. Anyone tell me why it failed? Any ideas of why this test would fail on mobile Safari but works on Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit? Any ideas? No. Sorry?
Maybe there wasn't a button shown on the mobile layout.
Love it. Maybe there wasn't a button shown on the mobile layout. So let's have a look, right? Because I was like, oh my God, it's failing. I don't know what's going on here, right? So you can click in through all of these, and you can click like this trace icon. It's going to open up my trace. Now my trace is mobile, right? So I'm checking the mobile version of it. And I'm scrolling along, and it's like obviously smaller because it failed. So I go, okay, where is it failing, right? And the bottom is the one that's failing, which is on that header, right? That header with the text of speakers is where it failed. So if I'm looking along, I can visually see that the speakers isn't there, right? The text speakers is not there. Playwright cannot click that speakers because it does not exist on the page, but it does exist on the actual page somewhere, I'm guessing, right? Because, you know, it works on mobile. It's a very good website. It's built responsively. So this works. But the element is out of the viewport. It's actually telling me, this element is outside the viewport. Now, what do I need to do to fix that? Okay, so let's have a look. This is a DOM snapshot, so I can actually inspect it. I can open up the developer tools, and I can have a look and see what did the developer do, and how do they build this website, and see what's going on. So I'll have a look and try and find that text equals speakers, because it has to exist somewhere, right? So I'll look in here, and I've got in the nav wrap, under the header, I've got this button A, and there's my speakers text. So my speakers text exists, right? So that works, but I'm going to scroll over just to get space, and you can see right here as I hover over it, that's where it is, right? It's on that animation part of the menu that hasn't come into view. It's out of viewport. So Playwright cannot click on it because it's not in the viewport. That makes sense. Okay, so now how do we fix that? How do we fix this test? What would you do? Any ideas? Yeah, I can't hear him because Tejas is speaking too loud. Scrolling. Really? It's a good, interesting. Yes. Delete it. I love it. Just delete it. Delete the test. So what you do is you write your test and say, hey, if it's mobile, pass in the is mobile fixture and say, if it's mobile, I want you to actually click on the nav button. I want you to open the nav button menu and click on it, because if you're mobile, there's another step to go to get that text equals speakers. If you're not mobile, just go ahead and click that menu because it's there. But if it's not there, and because you're on a mobile phone, basically await that page locator nav button, click it, and now I can go ahead and continue with my test. So that's how you would do that. And if I do that, the test works, and everyone's happy. So running your tests on CI with GitHub Actions, as I mentioned, it's very easy. This is already given to you, so you don't have to do anything. Unless you're doing component testing. If you're doing component testing, you just need to add another one in there and add the actual component testing, which is npm run test-ct. Add that in, and then it will run your end-to-end tests and your component tests. So again, this is all there. Finished my test, I push it to GitHub, and now I've got my tests, and they're either failing or they're passing. So I can see what's failing, I can see what's passing, and I have an idea of, you know, what's going on. Now I can also click on the actions on the summary, and I will see the Playwright report. So that's the report I showed you that is now going to have a trace file. So from GitHub Actions, I can now download that, and I can open it up. I need to use Playwright to open it up, so make sure you open it in somewhere that has Playwright running. I can open that up locally, and then I can check it out, see what went wrong, open that trace, debug, fix it, and rebuild that test or whatever. Or if I'm not the developer, I can just zip that, send it to the developer over whatever device you're using, messaging device, and say, hey, here's the trace file of that test. Can you take a look at it? Can you go and fix it? So Playwright testing, basically you've got a VS Code extension. I showed you the Codegen, so auto-generate your tests. Just make sure you then go over it and prove those tests with First Assertions. You can run your tests in debug mode. You have locators and frame locators. You saw how we tested the iframe as well, just very easy. You got reports to see like what's going on at your test at all stages. And you've got the trace file, so you can open that trace and kind of like a timeline, go through every aspect of what's going on in that test at all times. You also have auto wait built in for all actions. You don't have to add any timeouts or do anything. It's just automatically there. There's no need to set that. Tests run in parallel, so it's like super fast. Multiple browsers, we saw that. Devices, we saw that. Intercepting requests, it follows all redirects. It bypasses cores and it manages the cookies for you. So when I rerun that test, etc., the cookies are, you can store them, you can do all that kind of stuff very, very easily. And that is Playwright test. So my question is to you today, are you ready to Playwright? Okay, good. Thank you. You can keep clacking because that will annoy him. Like, woo. But seriously, my question to you, seriously, I'm going to just put this up so you have like the links in case you did want to go to any of the links for our documentation or Twitter or YouTube. But does that make testing a little bit easier and more fun? Yeah? A couple of yeses? Yeah? Just give me a thumbs up if you think it does. Oh my God. I need to take a selfie with those thumbs up. That is amazing. Let me see if I can do this. Selfie time. Right. Give me a thumbs up. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So that is Playwright. My email is there, debbieobrien@microsoft.com. If you want to send me emails, I don't look at them very often, but I really don't. But I do look at Twitter a lot. So we do have a Slack community. You can find me on there. You can find me on Twitter. If you do have any questions, if you wanted a follow-up call, I'd love to know more about your experience using Playwright, how you're getting on with it, what problems you're having. I'm here to help in the community. Remember, Playwright is by Microsoft, but it's free and open source, so it's yours to use. We want you all to use it and love it just as much as you love TypeScript and VS Code and everything else. But anything you need, come and see me, and I'll help you out as much as possible. And happy testing, everyone. Thank you very much.